I'm Belinda Campbell. I'm the Joint Managing Director at Red Planet Pictures, where I oversee all the creative development and production. Well, we've been at Red Planet Pictures. I mean, obviously, it's been an industry that has been kind of quite hard hit, obviously. And Red Planet Pictures was luckier than some because Death in Paradise, which was due to start filming in April, actually had insurance for pandemics. So it was really a question of us just biding our time and making, the proper preparations until we could get back into production, which we did at the end of July. We were one of the first single camera dramas to start filming again out in Guadeloupe. And it was down to I have to say, I think that the industry as a whole has reacted to this amazingly by coming together, by collaborating, by sharing information, by sharing knowledge. And I think all of that really did enable everyone to to really gather intel and then to make it happen. So that's what we did. We started filming at the end of July, and it's all going pretty well at the moment, although obviously there are some considerable obstacles that need to be overcome on a day-to-day basis, primarily in keeping people safe and ensuring that the costs of doing so don't spiral completely out of control. Obviously, the thing that's of paramount importance is safety. And so an awful lot of time, my co-MD, Alex Jones, who looks after the business and production side of things, is very involved in PACT. And there were a lot of calls amongst all of the production companies, all sharing the information about what needed to be done. So I just think, we know what we have to do. We know that we have to observe social distancing. We know that we have to use PPE. We know that we have to plan our scripts carefully to ensure that there is limited contact between casts. So scripts have been rewritten and directors have thought differently about how they might shoot something to enable us to properly honour that. In France, it's actually a metre distance rather than 2 metres. So it's been incredibly thorough, very, very methodical, leaving nothing to chance. I mean, obviously, we're an industry which always plans for the worst and hopes for the best. And so, we were well equipped to actually really think about, the minutiae of what we needed to do to ensure safety, because, it's obviously of paramount importance. We're quite lucky with Death in Paradise because obviously a lot of it is shot outdoors. And that makes a real difference. And also there is no intimacy or not really any to speak of. And, it's not period. So that again, so there are factors by which we have been luckier than some. And because obviously we shoot on an island and because we test people before they go and because we test people after they arrive, we then form a bit of a bubble when we're out there. And I think these are the things that you have to do. Every production is different, dependent on where they are shooting and who they are shooting with and, many, many, many factors. So I think every production company has adapted slightly what PACT as a general body work together to kind of come up with these guiding principles. So it's been incredibly efficient, and I think very impressive. But it's a creative industry, so people think creatively about coming up with these solutions. The conversations that I've been having with commissioners during and since we got back up and running are really positive. I mean, I think that there are challenges. There is a massive backlog, for example, of shows that they didn't shoot this year that they will need to make and put out on air. So it's going to impact on the business because there are going to be less slots. So that is a frustration. I think also the commissioners are going to have a lot more reading to do because every single production company was very, very busy doing development. So I think that, they're going to be spoilt for choice in terms of what they take forward. But it's going to be a while before people can make really, really bold commitments about what it is they are going to make. Because whilst the government has given us, we have some form of insurance guarantee now, it's kind of limited. It's for a finite period, as I understand it. I think it's sort of, you have to be up and running before December and you have to finish before June. And obviously, well, not obviously, but you have to spend most of your money in this country. So those more international UK commissions might possibly struggle. So I think there are all manner of things which have to be kind of constantly factored in and dealt with. So yeah, challenges ahead, but we need some new television. We need to make some television. So I'm sure solutions will be found. We saw it coming and decided that we should take decisive action, lock down quickly. Everyone worked from home. We didn't want to furlough anyone. We felt that so long as we had the revenues coming in and the means to pay people, that we should continue to do that. We just redeployed people that weren't necessarily, office managers, receptionists, people that didn't have their day job to do. So we sort of got our house in order. We used it as a time to really, really be productive and proactive. And obviously development was incredibly busy. And, we always knew that Death in Paradise was coming back. So again, a lot of effort and energy was expended on figuring out how we were going to do that. So yeah, so it did sort of shift things. And we are now, along with every other company, thinking about the whole argument about office space. I think it is fantastic for people who don't live in London to be able to have a better work-life balance, because that obviously all feeds into people's productivity. We enjoyed that little fleeting moment when we could go back into the office, and I think everyone was delighted to be able to have meetings face to face, because actually, on balance, there is no substitute for, particularly creatively, for meeting with people and actually thrashing things out on a whiteboard behind you. So I don't think that working from home is ever going to be the full-time alternative, but we can work flexibly because we've proved that it works. I think in terms of what people want to watch, I think people, for very many reasons, need entertainment at the moment, and that could be anything from The Bodyguard to to Death in Paradise to Schitt's Creek or whatever. I mean, I think people are hankering after things that make them feel better. So would it change what I make? Not really, because I think that's what people want now. And I think that will change again. I don't think you can ever afford to be reactive. I think you just have to concentrate on making great content. But I think it's sort of interesting, so much of what we do is about timing, isn't it? Brilliant shows go sort of, overlooked because they just didn't land. Again, Death in Paradise, in the first series, it was on in October, and it did pretty well. But the next series, it was on in January, and it just exploded because come January, people could do with a bit of sunshine. So I do think, I think timing has an awful lot to do with things. So Schitt's Creek doing so brilliantly, to what extent is that to do with the fact that people just want that joy and that reassurance? So I think that things will continue in the direction that that we have been traveling in. I think that there is an ever increasing demand for the high end, which doesn't necessarily have to mean the massive budget, but I think that the sort of the approach to novelized serial drama, shows no signs of slowing down, because people want to watch what they want to watch when they want to watch it. And it does feel like the public service broadcasters are going to have to catch up with that if they're, going to retain their position. I find it really hard to, I know people have talked about how the relationship's going to change and how streamers are going to stop investing in terrestrial television. They haven't done that yet. They seem to be continuing to, enjoy the co-production model. I think it's going to be on a case-by-case basis, honestly. I think that the one thing that the pandemic has absolutely proved, as if we didn't already know it, is that content is king. There can never be enough good material on television. So I think the streamers will continue to do what they do, which is to provide that sort of local output with a global appeal. And I think our public service broadcasters will continue what is an incredibly successful model for them, to make the sort of the local programs which tell the story of Britain, but then might also have a more global appeal as well. So I think, I think the key thing, as I say, that's going to be different is making output that can be binged, which is that sort of novelized approach to storytelling, so people can just sort of sit and watch what they want to watch on whatever device they want to watch it when they want to watch it. And obviously the BBC, that there have been suggestions that they're going to create genre heads rather than channel heads, which will enable them to commission, across all the different platforms. And that sort of seems to suggest that this is the direction of travel. We've got some new shows in the pipeline, which we're very excited about for next year. I think that we will continue in our approach, which is to, our focus is always about high-end mainstream drama, primarily for the terrestrials, but we have, despite the fact that we are one of the last true indies, we've been investing quite a lot of money in developing scripts to take out to SVODs to help us break into different markets. I find, one of the things that is very exciting about being a program maker at the moment is the fact that there are just so many different places to go. You have got your main British terrestrial channels. You have also obviously got the streamers, you've got the US, you've got Europe, you've then got the sort of the smaller UK streamers like Acorn or BritBox. And what's really exciting is how the how the industry is, to some extent, it's kind of atomizing in as much as all of these channels provide a slightly different, they're quite bespoke, aren't they? And so that's obviously fantastic for the viewer, but I think also for program makers, the fact that we do now have all these different places to go to is also, is great. I think we are in that new normal now, which I think is that we have to, take an incredibly cautious approach, but that we have to all really, really sort of support each other and come together. I mean, I think we do need to have a bit more government assistance. I think that freelancers have been, have obviously slightly fallen through the gaps, and a lot of the base of our business is that. So I do wonder if how we employ people going forwards is going to be different. And I think obviously the question of insurance is huge. Do we need the government to actually step in and provide ongoing, I suppose, sort of ultimate cover in the event of another pandemic? Because now it's happened, we're all very aware that it could happen again. And I think that obviously that was one of the major obstacles about getting back, was this whole issue of insurance and who was going to underwrite the extra costs. So we do need to have a long-term solution to that. I think one of the things that is critical, I think one of the things that sort of people talk about is whether or not the sort of streamers will make public service broadcasting ultimately obsolete. And I have to say that I think that is not the case, because I just think the range of, I think at the moment, I think we have to be really careful that the BBC, ITV, for different reasons, these broadcasters have been hit by the pandemic. And I think that we need to ensure their long-term sort of, security, because they're incredibly important to telling the British story. So I think it would be nice out of this, the value of what we do has been proven again. And I think that to ensure that we offer, I guess, to ensure that we're all winners is really the message that I would like to see. Because I think the BBC, particularly at the moment, and ITV, particularly at the moment, where this country has undergone so much upheaval, for actually what feels like very many years, I think that they do an incredibly important job of pulling us all together. And I think that some of the whether or not we're talking about the COVID shorts that were made, or whether or not we're just talking about how the BBC responded with all of their additional online learning, I think that they have all been remarkable. In terms of diversity, it has been a massive wake-up call. Over the summer, the Black Lives Matter movement, I think that obviously as a sort of, as a liberal industry, we're all very mindful and have tried for very many years. But I think undoubtedly we haven't gone far enough, and we haven't really made the inroads that we should have made. So I actually think that everybody is taking it upon themselves to make the changes that they want to see. So, for example, Red Planet are now committed to ensure that we, rather like we do on Death in Paradise, where we employ local people from Guadeloupe, that's what we want to do going forward on each of our productions, to ensure that wherever we're filming, that we actually do use local people who might not otherwise have come into the industry. Because I think that there is obviously a massive problem with not employing enough people from diverse backgrounds. But I think diversity is also about class, and we have to sort of make sure that this industry is properly inclusive in terms of who we employ, but also the programs that we make, that we are sure that we are making programs that reflect the lives or reflect the interests of everybody in the country. And I think that that's a real sort of take-home lesson, that it's, accusations of liberal metropolitan values are probably fair. So it is incumbent on all of us to ensure that we are fully inclusive in terms of what we make and who we employ.